Hello and welcome to this video. This is kind of a part 2 to the video I made about the foxes. Just this time I think I figured out the magic formula for making these kind of paintable outline drawing things that you can print. So for those of you who haven't seen my fox video, basically the idea is when I want to make something with my 3D pen, I'm always, having a hard time doing the outlines and doing them straight, but I really enjoy coloring the things in. So I decided to print the outlines on my 3D printer and make it easier for myself. It still leaves a lot of creativity to color them in, and I can just freely do that. Plus it has a background, a printed one, and it's not just the outlines on like a plastic sheet that you have to peel it off of, so you actually have a background color which can make certain colors pop more, especially since some filaments are a bit more translucent than others. So that is why I designed these cute little mice that you saw in the beginning, and I'm going to color them in just with my 3D pen and several colors. I'm going to try and use some shading, but half of the filaments I have are just filament scraps, so I don't have much. On the other hand, this white and the grey I'm going to use later. The light grey I have, these two are from spools that I have, but the rest of the filaments are all leftover filaments, filament scraps, and some of them are still leftover from the kit that came with this 3D pen. I decided to actually make these available on my mini factory, and I went with mice that are more of a fantasy theme. So you can also be a bit more creative. Now the first one you saw had a book, so you can color on the book pages whatever you want. You can fill them in however you want. So, there's a lot of creativity there, and of course you can change the color of the mice. I went with the book mouse, a flower mouse, where you can, always, of course, choose the color and the way you want to color them in, especially with 3D pens since you can do them textured. But I also made an alchemist or a potion mouse, and another one that is more of a warrior with a needle as a sword and a button as a shield. And lastly, I made a wizard mouse with a staff and a wizard head. All of these I think are super cute motifs that, I personally really like, and I had a lot of fun making, although it was a bit more work because sometimes programs have a hard time if you have too many lines to turn it into a 3D, so I had to make every single one of these manually, extrude every line manually and all that, and it took a bit longer, and the program sometimes kept crashing, so these definitely took way more work. The fox I actually directly threw in the 3D program, so when I drew that I could just extrude it and it kind of worked. But these I drew in a drawing program first and then, converted, and yeah, a lot of programs are not doing well with that because you add a lot of splines and points and stuff and curves that they need to calculate. So, it kind of is a bit more effort, and actually a lot of PCs I know cannot handle this. But luckily I managed, and I'm really happy because they turned out so adorable in the end, and honestly it was a lot of fun coloring them. I actually chose to go with a more textured look this time for certain parts. I'm still going to smooth out some parts, and for that I'm using the silicone finger protectors, just so when I press the hot filament to make it flat, that I don't burn my fingers, because this is still 210 degrees Celsius hot plastic. So, it's very hot, it definitely burns you quite easily. So always make sure to wear protection when you, work with the pen, especially if you, have to clean up the nozzle, or, as I said, want to make a smoother texture. But I also decided to keep the fur texture a bit. So I'm trying to, have the direction of the lines I'm making a bit in the direction of the fur, just to make it look, a bit more textured and all that, since we can do that with the 3D pen. It's a 3D pen for that exact reason, so, any option I have to make textures, I definitely will. Also a bit of a background on these mice. I decided to draw mice because I really like them. I had gerbils for a long while as my pets, and I think mice are super adorable, and especially in like a fantasy setup, I think that's pretty cool. There's a lot of movies out there and a lot of artworks of people that draw mice as like knights or some else, like, you know, having little jobs and stuff. And I think that's so adorable, so I really wanted to, you know, design something that is very similar. I'm also decided to try and add a little bit of shading to some. Now the book mouse I edited later, so it does take away a bit of the texture, but the rest of the mice I just left some spaces for the shading. For the mice I decided to paint grey. The only shading material I had was black. So, you know, it will be a bit darker than I would prefer, but at least it has some shading. But I really wanted to make these mice grey, just, you know, to have a bit of variation. Plus I think like a wizard mouse and an Hakami mouse as like grey mice fit a bit more. That's why they would probably also look cute. And you know, one of the other things that is nice with these colored pictures is you can use up your leftover filaments. Now of course with larger areas like this you may have to like choose a filament that you have a bit more of, but for things like the details like the staff and the head and stuff, you can collect the filament scraps you have and just make them really colorful. The fox of course was more meant for that, since it had the outlines with the divisions where you can fill in every line separately. But you know, I didn't want to do that with these mice because I think this design is way cuter if you can fill it in one. Plus with it being flatter, you don't actually use too much filament up for filling this in. As I already mentioned in the fox one, that one had too high of like edges, so you needed a lot more filament to fill this in. For the mice I kind of went like way thinner. I tested with my 3D pen how high the lines would approximately need to be, and I think the 0.8 millimeters, I can't remember anymore, I'm sorry guys, was the perfect choice there. I think it's 0.8 millimeters that I chose for the height of these. I would have to check though, but yeah. And you know, again, just as the fox, I enjoyed coloring them in so much that I didn't even realize that I spent 4 hours on this. So I was just sitting there coloring them blissfully. I always tried to like use the same color up for all the spots on the mice. Sometimes I forgot 1 or 2 spots, so I had to go back to the other colors, but it's way easier to work with the same color over multiple pieces if you know you need it, instead of just switching the entire time. Plus, like, especially the cheaper pens don't really do well with switching. Like my tube on the inside that runs the filament to the nozzle constantly kept slipping out, so I had to fix it inside a bit more, like unscrew the pen and then just push that back inside where it belonged and then clamp it down a bit more with the thing they included. But also, if you have to do that, please always be careful. Unplug your pen so there's no current because you're having open circuits there. And also wait for it to cool down, because there are very hot parts, especially where the nozzle heaters. And some pens do have that completely open on the inside, so you can immediately burn yourself or even burn some of the components, especially the tubes or so if you move them around. And it would be a shame if you know, melted your tube just by trying to fix it, and it would mean you have to get a replacement tube or something. So yeah, let your pen cool down. It's way safer. course I went with shading where I could, but with things like the button I only really had one blue option of filament that I had some scraps of, so I couldn't really get any shading done. But I think in the end, like, these limits still, like, the pieces still look really cute. As for the book pages, I decided to go very simple. You know, we have a mouse here, so why not draw up some of their habitat? So I decided to draw just a simple grassland with a blue background and then a little tree on the other side. And I tried to like color the back of them a little bit more in like this cream tone, just to make it look like it's like an illustration a bit more on the white book pages. And I think that kind of worked. But yeah, these are, you know, the mouse is basically reading a book about where it lives, or it used to live. Could imagine all of my mice just being in an adventure group together, you know, just working their way through, or like living together in a household, just working their way through life. And you know, this guy particularly is a bookworm. He likes to read, and he especially loves the illustrations in the book for the original habitats. Maybe the land was overrun by monsters where they used to live, you know, if we go with a D&D type setting. Or maybe they had to flee from the land because humans built there or something else. So, you know, he's just immersing himself into the books and fantasizing about where they used to live in the places, just looking at the little pages. I think that's a very, like, cute little background story there. Usually I think my characters that I sculpt and stuff don't really have too much of a background story, but with these mice I really feel like they have one already. They have so much character, I have the feeling, so, you know, having them as adventurers I think fits them really, really well. Now, some of these lines are a bit harder to get like on the book pages, but you know, that adds to the challenge. Now, some 3D pens of course may not be up for the challenge depending on the speed settings you have, but I went really, really slowly for filling in these lines, and I think at the end it kind of worked out. But I always made sure that there's at least some way to cram the 3D pen in. And here you can see all of them finished. The shading on the night mouse is definitely a bit more weird. I think I should have just gone with grey on the underbelly completely, but I absolutely love the rest. Also, the green of the potion for the potion mouse does fluoresce, but I didn't really charge it with any sunlight while I was filming this, so you're not getting to see that. But I got a pretty good scare at night when I walked past these and I saw it glowing. But honestly, I think I'm not the only one that sometimes gets startled by things that they don't know or forgot that they're glow in the dark. I remember us having like little plastic stars that were glow in the dark that you could like stick on things as children. And sometimes you would forget where you put one, and like at night you would like move around or like look around in your dark room and something would be like very faintly glowing. Kind of either startled or was like very fascinating to look at, I think. But anyway, again, like with the box one, let me know in the comments down below what you think of these. And if you have any more ideas for motifs. I already got the idea to make moths or butterflies again. And yeah, I think I'm going to definitely make those, and I may actually do like a fish theme, like goldfish, koi and stuff like that, because I think that would also be very cute to color in. But you know, let me know down below if you have any more motif ideas. But anyway, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye!